I first want to talk about one of the players in the bidding war, Skydance Paramount. So first we have to talk about Skydance Productions for those that don't know about it. Skydance Productions is a media and financial company that was founded by David Ellison in 2010. For those that don't know, David Ellison is the son of Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison is the founder of Oracle. Oracle is a software company. It is one of the major big tech companies in the world, one of the most valuable and one of the most important, because Oracle provides back-end services like data hosting for all of the other major websites. Most of the major websites, they have their data hosted by Oracle. So that's a lot of names and that's a lot of information. Larry Ellison is also, he's one of the richest people in the world. At various times, he's been the second richest man in the entire world with a net worth north of $300 billion. And that's because of his 40% stake in Oracle. Now, he funded his son's production company, Skydance, in 2010. His son, David, creates a production company with seed money from his dad. Of course, they're both. Larry is Jewish. His son is Jewish. Skydance is a production company. They work in concert with Paramount Global. And they work with Paramount Global to create some of the major Hollywood blockbusters like Top Gun and like Mission Impossible and other movies. Here's where it gets interesting. In August of this year, after 2 years of negotiations, Skydance Production acquires Paramount Global, and they become one company. This is a deal that was funded by David Ellison's father, Larry Ellison. And now it's one big major media conglomerate. And I'll read to you, these are some of the assets that are owned by Paramount Global. I'll just give you a brief list of them. So this is from a source. It says Paramount Global was previously controlled by Sherry Redstone through her family, her father, Sumner Redstone, and the holding company, National Amusements. This was acquired by Skydance in August 2025. This is a legacy media conglomerate. It owned Paramount Pictures, the Hollywood studio, CBS, the television station, CBS News, Nickelodeon, MTV, Comedy Central, Paramount Plus, the streaming service, and Showtime, which is a subscription-based service also. Skydance Media is a production and finance company, again, founded by David Ellison, backed by his father. They acquired Paramount because they sought a major studio, a library of content, global distribution, and a streaming platform. So Skydance acquires Paramount in August 2025, and now they become Skydance Paramount, a major media conglomerate. And again, all funded by Larry Ellison. So now you've got Skydance Production, you've got Paramount Hollywood Studios, Paramount Plus, Showtime, CBS, Nickelodeon, MTV. All these properties are under one roof. This is now the new kid on the block, a major media conglomerate. Now, it's worth pointing out that this is owned by David Ellison. And David Ellison is a trust fund kid. In reality, this is part of Larry Ellison's extended portfolio. So owning Oracle, he owns a lot of the data that's on the internet. He also now owns a significant chunk of the media. Going back to Larry Ellison's idea.
Just on that, and people wonder why certain narratives are pushed so much by media. I mean, when you allow this to happen, this sort of monopolization of the media, you're sort of asking for this. It's the one kind of critique of capitalism is that it can't, this kind of thing can happen. Well, it shouldn't, but obviously it has happened. But yeah, I mean, people wonder why the certain narratives are pushed so hard by so many different organizations. This is exactly why.
It's important to understand he is ethnically Jewish, not religiously Jewish. In spite of this, He is one of the major private backers of the Israeli Defense Forces, the Israeli military, the IDF. He's given them tens of millions of dollars over the years. He's a close personal friend of Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. He owns the largest island off the coast of Hawaii that's owned by a private individual. Last summer, he let Bibi Netanyahu vacation there with his family. So the Ellisons, they're not just a Jewish family. They're not just one of the richest families in the world, but they're also American oligarchs that are basically in bed with the Israeli government, with the Israeli government's prime minister, its leader, and also its military. And they
that's a big problem. I mean, regardless of what you think of Netanyahu or Israel or Larry Ellison for all that, I mean, someone who owns so much data. If you look into Larry Ellison, the amount of data that Oracle owns is ridiculous. I mean, I've worked at companies that use Oracle. I've worked at loads of companies that use Oracle, actually. The amount of data that Oracle has access to, and him being so close to Netanyahu, someone who is considered, I don't know, but he's considered by quite a lot of people as a war criminal, an international gangster. That's something that should be ringing alarm bells.
Been for 20 years. There's something else important to understand about Larry Ellison that happened this year. Larry Ellison is a close friend and a supporter and a backer of Donald Trump. Obviously, Donald Trump became the president again this year. And one of the major trade deals that Trump has made earlier in the year with China saw the Chinese parent company ByteDance transfer ownership of TikTok from Beijing to Washington. After the U.S. Congress banned TikTok last year, it was an act of Congress that did it in 2024. TikTok was officially banned in January. When Trump came to power, he made this part of his negotiations with the Chinese state. Among other things, it was about trade, it was about semiconductors, computer chips, critical minerals. TikTok was also part of this deal. Donald Trump aggressively pushed Beijing to force the Chinese parent company ByteDance to sell TikTok to a consortium of American companies. And earlier in the year, that deal was finalized. And the details of the deal are this. TikTok is being sold from ByteDance to a consortium of private American companies. And the private American company that will take the biggest interest, the biggest commercial and financial stake in TikTok is Oracle, Larry Ellison's software company. But it doesn't stop there. Not only does Larry Ellison get the biggest chunk of TikTok out of any of the other private companies like Andreessen Horowitz, for example, that will own TikTok, he has the biggest chunk. He will also be hosting all of the American data that is on TikTok. So if you have a TikTok account, if you have it downloaded on your phone, all of that data that TikTok receives from its American user base, it is being hosted by Oracle. But there's more than that too. Not only does Oracle have the largest financial stake, and they're hosting all the TikTok data, but Oracle alone is going to get access to TikTok's algorithm. And Oracle will receive the proprietary algorithm from ByteDance that is owned by TikTok, and they will manipulate the algorithm and change it for its US user base. So to recap, Larry Ellison's son, David, creates a production company called Skydance. Larry, the father, backs the merger between Skydance and Paramount. So now, inside of Larry Ellison's family portfolio, you have the Skydance production company, the Paramount production company, Paramount Plus, Showtime, Nickelodeon, MTV, Comedy Central, CBS News. This is a deal paid for by Larry Ellison. The original company, paid for by Larry Ellison. But in addition to that, what is also part of his portfolio is TikTok, the largest financial stake out of any of the private companies that are part of the consortium that owns it, all of TikTok's data, and the proprietary algorithm. That is a media empire. And you would call this in the private sector, in business terminology, this is what's called vertical integration. Vertical integration. And what that means is that every step of the supply chain is controlled by one company. The media is created by a studio. So they go into a literal studio with cameras and lights and a set and all of that in Hollywood, and that is owned by Larry Ellison. Paramount and Skydance have the actual studio. And then once they make the content, they will license and distribute it. That is also owned by Larry Ellison. They control the licensing of it. They control the distribution of it to the various networks and other companies. They also then now own the television stations that will air the shows, the television networks, the streaming platforms that will distribute them so it gets onto Paramount Plus, Showtime, and they even now own the social media company where the content inevitably will wind up also and where it might be advertised too. So every step of the way, Larry Ellison owns it. The studio, the licensing, the distribution, the television networks, the streaming channels on digital, and also even a social media company too, including its data, where it's literally hosted on the back end, its algorithm, and in terms of the governance of the company too.
Thank God that Nick is exposing this. I think it's quite scary that someone is actually able to do this, and I feel like it's something that should kind of be, again, how do you regulate it? I mean, the problem with this is whoever's got the money sort of has the say, and Larry Ellison is one of the richest men in the world. But the fact that someone is able to have such control over literally all the information that's going out, so they host a load of data, they also then control the data that gets distributed to the population, Paramount Plus and social media, TikTok. So yeah, very, very scary.
That's what we're talking about. And this is all owned by a pro-Israel that has a personal relationship and friendship with the Prime Minister of Israel. Again, Netanyahu's family vacations on Ellison's private island in Hawaii. Larry Ellison has donated more money to Israel's military than any other private citizen. Larry Ellison even convinced Arnon Milchan, a Hollywood producer, to drop his Jewish lawyer so that Netanyahu could retain him for his defense in his corruption.
This is where people are concerned as well, and again, it's really, really scary, because it's like, whatever he could easily be giving loads of that data to Israel. He might already be doing that. I don't know. I'm not here to say whether he is or he isn't, but that's where the sort of massive concern is. I mean, how you're so close to a war criminal, and you have access to all this data. You seem to be giving billions and billions and billions of pounds. You seem to be giving fucking loads of money to Israel. And this is where people are rightfully concerned. It's like, how much of that are you giving to Israel? You know?